Good morning. Nice to see everybody. We're going to do a little bit of a different presentation than you just saw, a little less technical and a little bit more about the business that we're in, about selling more stuff, which is something that I've been doing for a long time and trying to help our clients think that through. So we all would agree that the marketing landscape is changing, that there's a lot of challenges that are out there. And I think from a highlight standpoint, we're starting to see that you as marketers have a different mandate coming from within your organization, what your charters are. How do you take technologies and experiences and put them together to be able to create outcomes that are going to benefit your business? You need to do more with less, right? Everybody would agree that it's a little harder than it's been. Tech stacks are coming together. There's a lot of different challenges that are happening within your organization, and we need to be able to make that work together and be more efficient. And lastly, customer behavior has changed. And I'm not going to do one of those typical, hey, you know, the pandemic changed everything, but it did change certain aspects of the way consumers interact with brands and how brands need to interact with consumers. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, just a little bit of a teaser. So that's me and my daughter, Haley, when I started in this sort of email marketing industry before many of you were probably even thinking about getting into this career. I kind of feel walking around this conference, and Jeremy will appreciate this, I'm probably the oldest dude here. But that's Haley and I, and back then, that was my silly personal email address, sandtrap11@aol.com. It's real, and it was because I was, and I still am, a terrible golfer. So back in the day, some of you may not know this, but we put together email addresses that were sort of like labels of who we were. We just didn't be so specific about it. So that's Haley now, and myself. We were at the Phillies National League Championship game last year together. She now is an aspiring journalist doing sports broadcasting in Philadelphia, and she hooked Dad up with tickets that day for the first time. So I just wanted to show the juxtaposition of age. And the point of all of this is, when we started in this business, or I started in this business, everybody said, hey, we can send the right message to the right person at the right time. Well, here's a little trick and secret. No, we couldn't. I remember going in and pitching email to people and saying, hey, you can collect these things called email addresses and send messages to people about your business. And we were truly out on the front line evangelizing. And now I feel, as we've evolved and we have email addresses that are more personalized and more professional, probably even in our personal worlds, there isn't an ISP called Random ISP. We just did that as a placeholder. I feel like with all the technology that has evolved and all the data assets that are available to us, we can finally send the right message to the right person at the right time. So that was a little bit of an opportunity to pretend like I'm doing a TED Talk. I don't know if it landed, but this is not the first time. And Haley doesn't know, but I use her in different presentations all the time. I pitched her to a client last year. I did all kinds of things. So hopefully she'll let me ride her coattails as she builds her brand. So when we talk about what marketers need, they have to talk about the customer experience. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and if you've ever been on the other end of one of my sales pitches, you can all read. You don't need me to read the slides for you. But we have to personalize at scale, which is a big movable ink component. We have to connect the experiences that people are having with our brands and with the engagements that they're taking across all of our touch points. And we have to differentiate our marketing, because there's a lot of competition. I remember when we started in this business, we tried to get people to understand that you're not just competing in the inbox against your direct competitor or your identified direct competitors. You're competing for mind share in that inbox against everybody else that's coming in. And if your messaging isn't unique and it's not personalized and it's not landing, it doesn't matter if you sell women's clothing or televisions or, you know, high-end pet food. It will get lost in the message with other brands that are creating better experiences for your end users. So as a result of that, over a period of time, we've started to see the expansion into organizations needing to find a way to make their data more accessible into the marketing component and more available to you all as a way to influence the. So we've entered into this new world of customer data platforms. And a lot of these organizations are using them to leverage identity and be more effective at understanding who their customers are and particularly for those of us that are in the marketing end of the world, to bring together that marketing transactional component into one place so we can see what's going on. Well, we're thinking about this a little bit differently at Oracle, because we think that the customer engagement isn't just in the marketing world, where you're touching them with different messaging and we're looking at response rates to integrations and things of that nature to what we're trying to sell them. We think that there's an opportunity to take a look at your back and mid-office engagements to be able to collect even more data about your customers and make that more available to you in the marketing world. Come on, old guy, make this work. All right, so in Oracle, the CX experience is starting to become front and center, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But from a technical integration standpoint, Oracle has made a concerted effort to kind of look at a unified data model across all of Oracle's touch points, and that includes things like our enterprise resource planning environments, or our supply chain management, or human capital management, or even enterprise performance management. And if you take a look across the bottom of this slide, I lied, I'm going to make you look at a slide here. You got, AI and machine learning, analytics and security and identity all coming together, but it's not just coming from outside engagement resource information, it's coming from within your own environment. Remember that old horror movie, The Calls Coming From Within the House? There's a lot of data within your house that you can leverage for marketing purposes to be able to drive outcomes. So an example would be to think of call center interactions that may be taking place with your business. And a little bit later on, I'm going to give you guys some examples if you're trying to connect the dots right now of different ways. Remember I said your customers experience your brands in different ways, of different ways that you don't even necessarily think about how those interactions are impacting the customer's view of your business and their experience with your business, which is pretty important. And so all of these actions start creating a wider view of their interaction with your brand. I'm going to switch sides here a little bit for no other reason than just to switch sides. You're not supposed to just stand still when you're doing a presentation. Plus, now Jeremy and I are closer, so we could see each other. But if you think about being able to take all of this data from a unified, single data schema and pull it forward into your marketing environment, that would give you great power now to start thinking about how you want to create audience segmentations where you could, like the title of the presentation, really start weaponizing personalization. And I mean that in the best way. So we'll come up in a little bit with some examples of how we do that. So in our world, this is our Redwood UX design. And what this enables users to do when you're in our applications is to have a fold-out single view of every individual customer's interaction with you, such that now you can start really looking at audience identification. So for example, in this place, we kind of get a spotlight overview of what they're doing. We get to see what bills they have with your business. Now remember, we have all different types of brands and companies in this room, right? We've got retailers and CPGs and maybe some sports franchises and different interactions that we're having across different engagements, big telecom or communications companies like Comcast and those types of businesses. So all of these interactions are happening. We can look at household interactions, right? We may have an individual that we're looking at, but now we can pull in some household level information to help create audiences that are going to be more impactful for that. And this is the big one, which a lot of people don't think about, which are things like service requests, right? How are they interacting with your brand when they're not interacting with you in a pure marketing environment? That is a killer difference that will enable your brand to be really different in that inbox. Remember what I said earlier, you're not just competing with your competitors, your defined competitors, you're competing with everyone for mind share, and you need to be a little bit more advanced about that. So in B2C, the ability through a CDP like Unity, which is the name of our product, pretty cool name, right, for a CDP, Unity, Unify. This would enable us to add or suppress offers based on individual engagement status. So you might have a marketing campaign getting ready to go out, but your customer engaged with you in between the planning of that campaign and your execution that may be different than what you planned for them in the segment that you created. So the ability to now pull this data forward and utilize it to push a more personalized experience. Remember, this is all about the personalization experience that you're looking to create. This will enable you to get more involved with the proper upsell or recommendations or positive experience that they're trying to have with even customer service folks or other people that are in your business touching your customer that you may not be aware of. How about negative experiences, right? I just spoke about an example. What if you're an airline, as an example, and I hope if there's one in the room or many, if you're an airline and you get a passenger like me upset at the gate and you have an offer ready to go out to me and I just had a really bad flight with a bad experience, wouldn't you love to not send me that offer but augment it and say, hey man, we can do better and here's how we're going to make it better for you. So that's the type of thinking that we're looking at Oracle to say that there really is this connected tissue between the front and back office of everything that we do. And then, of course, the ability to start leveraging loyalty in that equation, whether or not you want to augment that experience. And I'm not just picking on the airline. I am an equal opportunity negative experience customer, and it can happen anywhere at any time. And as a side note, I wasn't going to talk about this. Stop reclining when you fly. Don't do that. I had a recliner on Amtrak this morning. He was able to stretch out completely, tight with no problem. Me, I was alligator arm behind him. So just a tip. And I know everybody goes, well, they make the seats to recline. Stop making the seats to recline. Tell your people. I'm actually really not kidding about that. So B2B personalization, the CDPs can be viable for B2B too. So B2B marketers have the same challenges B2C marketers have. They have people buying stuff from them. They just might not be buying consumer goods. But they are also experiencing all of the offers that they need to parse through. Why not take advantage, if you're on the B2B side, of personalizing that as well? And I'll tell you, there's a lot of our clients use our other product, not Responses, but Eloqua. Some of them are B2C and B2B. So if you're like a financial advisor working for a major company, that would sort of fall under B2B, but it would also be sort of business to consumer. So the same personalization and information that's happening in that person's world is important too. Like a bad day on the stock market might not be the best time to send somebody an email and say, hey, how about you give us some more money to invest? And these are real life examples of things that go by. And our position on this, you guys seen slides like this before. I don't know if you've seen her before, but she's here. But the ability to continue to enhance the view of the customer, that's really kind of what we all want to do, right? We want to get more information so we know more about that end user, so we can be more prescriptive about the way we're going to talk to them in our messaging. And that allows for increased personalization and things of that nature. And the back office engines and the mid office engines, where those customer experiences are taking place, are critical to that. So it's connecting marketers in a different way than they've kind of thought about it. And I think it'll give you guys, as the front-end marketers, the people making these decisions at your companies, much more power to be able to pull all this data together that you're probably not thinking about. So real quick, not in my presentation, I've got about 5.5 minutes left to regale you with other complaints that I have about things that happen in the real world, and I'll do that at the end. But more importantly, are a lot of people now looking at the full enterprise of data that you have available to you in your marketing suite? Show of hands, are you pulling back office stuff? I'm telling you, go back to your companies and say, I need to know what's happening in those worlds. And I'll tell you why. The customer experience, I told you I was going to tell you why. Customer experience has changed. We want to market as a differentiator. I'm going to go through these bubbles, these two dudes talking to one another in bubbles. So you say to yourself, well, like, talk to me about the back office. Give me an example of where this all plays out. So a lot of you now have online ordering, and you can go pick up at your brick and mortar location. You have some service element that's taking place. You might have an opportunity for somebody to come out to your house. Your refrigerator, my refrigerator now talks to a service center and wants to send out a technician when there's something wrong with it, right? And so these types of interactions that you may not be thinking through are how your customers are interacting with your brand. There's a ton of examples of those that you can think of. And that data for that interaction is typically sitting in back or mid-office systems in your businesses that you probably don't have access to. And so Oracle's looking at this and saying what we would call like the CX, the customer experience, or the sales and services part of our business isn't necessarily connecting yet to the marketing front end. And so we think being able to take this data and create a connected experience is really important. And how does that tie back into our friends here at Movable Inc.? The hyper-personalization you could do coming out of that, right? Where, again, you're taking that delivery event, you're taking that customer service experience that occurred. And the marketing doesn't always have to be a direct sale that you're pushing. It can just be brand awareness and brand support. And you might find that you're trying to sell the actual service over the product, depending on what your business looks like at a particular point in time. And the ability to leverage the AI and the availability of things like Da Vinci and all of the technology that can support this in a unified way through CDPs that can create more efficient audiences. I mean, for this old guy who's been telling right time, right message to the right person forever, disclaimer, I was not lying back when we started. We really thought that. We just couldn't do it. But to be able to actually sit here and do it, that's what we're all about at the Think Summit here. That's what we're thinking about at Oracle, right? We're thinking about this entire connective tissue that exists between the back end, the middle, and the front end of the business. And frankly, all of us in this room are front end parts of the business, right? By the way, airline joke, I was in a meeting with a big airline a couple years ago, and they were talking about how there was an operations person in the meeting in their business inside without us, and then he got up at the board, they were talking about all these X's and O's and all the importance of what we have to do with the airline as a customer experience, and the operations guy went up and he went, the only thing we have to worry about is that when we take off, we land. So I thought that was a totally fair and viable point, right? But anyway, I think it's really important for you guys to leave this presentation thinking in a more universal way around your business and the information that you can have, because data is truly power. We always say that, but the reality of it is that there's so much data out there now that being able to identify audiences using other subsets of information about your customers that exist within your business walls, it's way beyond just who's in your loyalty program. It's way beyond transaction events, whether they're happening online or in a brick and mortar environment. It's about what's happening when that refrigerator repairman shows up to your house and doesn't have the part on their truck, and the reaction that you have to the brand from that experience, and then how you're going to market to that person later, knowing that somewhere in the presentation that brand information was captured and you were able to leverage it. And we all know this. People don't care about the data about themselves. I mean, I know we talk about privacy and all that fun stuff, but people worry about their customer experience. They experience the content we send them. And the content should be where you meet them in a way that really personalizes that engagement. They build a big build slide for me. There we go. And ultimately, I do think we can get to the right person with the right message at the right time. And it's a little bit of a different spin on it, but I think you're going to hear a lot more about CX, customer experience, moving forward into the marketing realm and get us forward. So I want to thank you. I have 27 seconds left, so here's other things that I don't like. No, I'm only kidding. But I really appreciate the opportunity from my friends here at Movable Inc. to allow us to join you today. I hope you enjoyed what we were talking about here at Oracle, and thanks again for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.